Welcome to the I Love CVille show. My name is Jerry Miller. It's Tuesday afternoon. We're live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille network. Headlines right around the corner. A lot to get to from some news from the governor's office and the Commonwealth of Virginia opening back up again potentially in a slow, strategic, phased-out maneuver. The governor, who's been handling COVID-19 very well, talks to reporters yesterday, making headlines as we said would happen on this program. The governor of Virginia being impacted by the states around him opening. And Ralph is feeling the pressure. And now he goes on record saying, I have a plan to reopen. We'll get to that headline. UVA football gets a big-time quarterback from Texas, a superstar quarterback for the class of 2021. We'll get to that news on the program. Unfortunately, a New York City emergency room hospital director took her life in Charlottesville, Virginia over the weekend. She was with family. She was on the front lines in New York City battling COVID-19. She contracted COVID-19 herself. We'll get to that headline as well. We are an advertising agency here at V&V Brands and at I Love CVille, and we represent a lot of small businesses up and down the eastern seaboard, from New Providence, New Jersey to Asheville, North Carolina, with most of them in the Commonwealth. And two of our favorites, Interstate Pest and Service Companies, and Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine, family-owned businesses owned by great people in our community, committed to their team members, committed to their clients, their patients, and their customers. I've seen Interstate Pest and Service Companies and Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine really impact the community. Support the businesses that are supporting us. It's paramount that we do that more than ever. Kathryn Matthews, our guest in 13 minutes, the owner of Iron, Paffles, and Coffee. We'll talk about her business, her life, her mental health. She overcame a car accident because she's a warrior and a rock star. And overcoming a car accident, we go into COVID-19. So this has been a tough year for a lot of people, but she embodies positivity and chutzpah and heart and hustle and conviction and confidence and stick-to-itiveness, and she's a winner. I love catching up with her. Dave Norris, our guest at 110, former mayor of Charlottesville, Virginia, good friend of this program, Dave Norris at 110. I'm curious how COVID-19 is impacting public housing redevelopment in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm curious what Mayor Walker, what Councilors Payne, Hill, Snook, and McGill, what kind of power they actually have. What can our city councilors do? Well, we'll catch up with a guy who spent a lot of time in City Hall, and Dave Norris on the program. Let's get to headlines. Judah Wickhauer is our director. He is not heralded enough on this program. He should be champion on the regular. Judah, I mean that. The first headline, a little bit of positivity. Virginia Governor Ralph Northam to consider regional plan in Virginia for lifting restrictions as testing is increasing. Here's the digestible version. Testing is increasing in Virginia. People are slowly gaining confidence, that we're figuring this slowly, that we're managing this the right way. You have states in Georgia and Tennessee and South Carolina and Florida, states surrounding Virginia that are opening up their economies this week. States like Missouri that have opened their economy completely except for the 6-foot distancing rule between people. Missouri is good to go and open. Montana, Minnesota, states opening for business this week and ready to get the cash registers ringing as Elizabeth Cromwell, the CEO of the Charlottesville Chamber of Commerce, said on Real Talk this morning. I said this was going to happen, that Virginia is going to be impacted by the states that are first to market. We have a little bit of positivity here. I think the Virginia governor has handled this situation well. I think it's still important to remember the blackface situation he got caught up in. So you don't get the free pass, Ralph, because you've handled COVID-19 well. But he has, in this particular circumstance, handled COVID-19 well. And his medical background should not be undervalued here for his position of leadership in the Commonwealth. He's feeling the pressure from states around him. He's feeling the pressure from lobbyists, from business communities and business sectors across Virginia. He's seeing the dip in GDP. He's seeing the number of Virginians that are out of work, over 400,000 Virginians out of work. He's seeing 26 million Americans out of work. He's seeing the job increases that we had, the job gains that we had post-2008, 2009 be diminished. And he's got a plan coming into play. Watch it. Watch it closely. Next headline, Judah. We'll pick up the pace and tempo. This is a sad one. It went viral on social media here in Charlottesville. This coming from, unfortunately, from Charlottesville, an unfortunate story altogether. A New York City emergency room medical director. She basically ran the emergency rooms for New York City hospitals. She took her life in Charlottesville, Virginia. She was basically pulled from the city, according to reports, by her family to Charlottesville to try to center herself and take a break, just get away from the madness that is New York City COVID-19. She actually had COVID-19 herself, this emergency room doctor. She took a week and a half. She's 49 years old, Dr. Lorna Breen. You have the headline on screen. She took a week and a half away from being in the emergency rooms to manage COVID-19 herself, and then went back to work 10 days later. The medical people in the world are heroes. I just got a text message from my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law said the Blue Angels are flying over New York City right now, saluting the nurses of New York. How beautiful is that? The Blue Angels, the airplanes, flying over New York City right now, saluting the nurses of New York. The medical directors are heroes. It's a sad story, but it's a real-life story, and it's a story that's worth talking about because we have to celebrate this doctor as a hero for battling this pandemic, and we also have to remember the impact that this can have from our mental health standpoint. Here we have a doctor that is top of her field, director of emergency rooms in New York City, top of her field, that took her life. The mental health aspect of what's happening out there should not be undervalued or forgotten. It's important to consider the mental health and consider it with your family and friends too. Next headline, Kathryn Matthews in 8 minutes. I was very interested in this topic. It was coming up on a chat. I have a chat that I'm a part of, a text chain with a number of local leaders in the community. And the local leaders understand the value of this network and the ability for us to get information out there. And one of the local leaders on the text chain, he said, are you curious at all of how this is going to impact elections in November? Are you curious at all of how this could impact a local election like the 5th Congressional District when Denver Riggleman is trying to win a second term on maybe a push for a governor's mansion? You get 2 terms in the 5th if you're Riggleman, maybe you're thinking the governor's mansion. Okay? You have a lot of competition in this race. How is a COVID-19 landscape where people are fearful of leaving their homes, of touching anything that has not been sanitized, of going anywhere without a mask, of interacting with people at all? If we're still in this situation, how does that impact voting? Does it give an incumbent an advantage? Does it give the challenger the edge? In the 5th, to beat a Republican in Riggleman, the 5th is going to really have to, the Dems are really going to have to come out in droves. Will COVID, if we're still in this situation, impact that turnout? Think about it from a federal level, a national level. Think about a presidency. Follow that topic. Something to consider. Let's go back to local. Bronco Mendenhall, UVA football, Judah. Give me a thumbs up when that's on screen. UVA football gets a superstar commitment from a superstar quarterback in Texas. Class of 2021. Bronco Mendenhall is a heck of a coach at the University of Virginia. Oh, I see the awful branding on screen. Did you see that, Judah? I did not like the branding on screen from the Roanoke Times. But they pick up a quarterback. This guy is 6'3". He passed for over 3,000 yards, rushed for almost 1,300 yards last year in high school. He is a stud. He had offers from Air Force, Baylor, Hawaii, and Houston, big-time offenses that like to throw the football around and like to get their quarterback in space. Good news, Bronco Mendenhall. Now, if we're going to have football in the fall, man, I hope we have football in the fall. Oh, I hope we have football in the fall. I was reading this interesting metric on Twitter from Darren Rovell. He's like the business sports reporter for CNBC. And he was talking about how, say, the National Football League may be able to play in front of empty stadiums a bit more because the National Football League has so much revenue coming in from TV deals. College football, for example, relies a little bit more revenue on attendance from fans at a stadium, where NFL is more, its revenues, these TV deals, these behemoth deals that it has. Football in the fall is something I really, really hope we have. Kathryn Matthews in 4 minutes. Judah, how about the cartoon we saw on Twitter? This was floating around on cartoon. Give us the thumbs up when that's on screen. This one had us watching. This is the value of watching the show as opposed to just listening to it in its podcast form. When you're watching the show, you get cartoons like this. This is floating around the Charlottesville Twitter sphere. What Fashion Square is being sold? Who's buying it? UVA Foundation, not UVA. Can you imagine the price? And the reason I'm putting this out here is not to get the conversation going about Fashion Square Mall and who's buying it, but can you imagine the price of a mall that was already struggling? Fashion Square Mall was already struggling mightily before COVID-19. It was on its last legs, its last arteries. We were literally pumping life into Fashion Square Mall in January and February, pumping their chests to try to resuscitate them all. Now COVID-19 hits and takes the retail world, the brick and mortar shopping world, and kills it for good. Someone is going to buy Fashion Square Mall for, I'm not saying it's UVA, I'm saying if I was a betting man, it would be UVA. Someone's going to buy Fashion Square Mall for literally pennies on the dollar. Pennies on the dollar. And then they're going to have this behemoth property on their hands right in the heart of Albemarle County. And we're going to be fearful of the intentions of the purchaser unless they make them known well beforehand what they're going to do with the property. You can buy that property for pennies on the dollar right now. The last one I want to get to, support local businesses. Before we get to Kathryn Matthews, and Kathryn, we're going to get to you in about 30 seconds. In fact, I'll send you a text right here. 45 seconds, Kathryn. Get the Wayside fried chicken on screen. Takeout, baby. Takeout is tasting so good. Thank you, Gina. We're doing takeout left and right. Some of our favorite takeout places, you see Wayside fried chicken on screen. We got 24 pieces of fried chicken from Wayside Takeout for like $36. It fed myself, my wife, my little guy, my little boy, my brother-in-law, my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law, and then we had fried chicken left over for another meal. $36. Support local. Wayside's doing it right. The local in Belmont's doing it right. And Fabio's on High Street doing it right. Another one that's doing it right, I'm going to reach out to her now, is Kathryn Matthews of Iron Paffles and Coffee. People, the restaurants are still bringing really good food. The restaurants, and I'm calling her now, Judah, the restaurants are still bringing really good food to you guys for your enjoyment, and I encourage you to support them. I have, Judah, if I could get your thumbs up, if we can welcome Kathryn on screen. She is waiting. I'm getting a thumbs up. Kathryn, you were live for Charlottesville on the I Love CVille show.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I was hyping you in the beginning of the show. You overcome a car accident in stellar fashion because you're a winner. And that's just who you are. And just straight from there, we go into COVID-19, Kathryn.
No, I know. But I feel like, after a car accident like that and a near-death experience, it takes a lot to knock you down. So, yeah, I feel like I'm ready for anything now.
I love that. One of your best qualities, undoubtedly. What did you make of, well, first, let's start about you here. How's the mental health? How's everything going with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's going relatively well. In the beginning, it was kind of hard because there was a lot. But now I'm able to bring on more employees and, we're really there for each other, and that certainly helps with the positivity.
A lot of people admire the strategies you employ to grow your business. How about for the entrepreneurs that are watching? How did you manage as a businesswoman and CEO yourself? How did you manage your brand during this time? What strategies did you employ?
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, the most important thing was doing everything ethically and doing it in a way which would protect the safety of my staff and my delivery drivers and also, the community. So I promoted, how we were conducting business ethically and then, just carried on with the takeout, and the online advertising was very successful.
She is a digital, social, and mobile wizard and ninja. She gets her brand out there extremely well. Iron Paffles and Coffee. Don't you think, and this was a testament to your vision, where fast casual and QSR and food on the go is really going to boom? You called this years ago. Yeah. Your business is set up so well for this here.
Yeah, and actually there wasn't a whole lot of change that we had to put in apart from, 100% contactless. And, after the last recession and millennials as well, not having the time and finances to sit down and, fine a diner establishments, I just felt like fast casual was, the way to go. That's what's going to boom,
Well, you were right. What does the restaurant scene look like on the other side of this? I ask all the restaurateurs this. You were able to see a little bit into the future. You're an entrepreneur. What does it look like after this?
I felt like even if we had a recession, it was kind of going this way anyway, but likely it's going to be fast casual. It's going to be contactless. It's going to be a lot of takeout and deliveries. I feel like workers are all going to be paid minimum wage. You're going to see a reduction in tip-based jobs.
Ooh, get into that. Why do you think that?
Just because I think people are going to look for something a little bit secure in the future and something that's a little bit more stable and, realistic for long-term employment. Nothing with the highs and lows. Got
it. How about your take? And I was curious to ask you this, and then I'm going to get to some comments coming in for you. I was curious of your take, having grown up in England and having this global perspective. What I fall victim to is I'm not very worldly. I know this market really well and what's happening here. I don't know much outside of that. I mean, how did your global perspective help with this?
Mm-hmm. Well, I just wanted to mostly give people the same kind of rights that we get in the UK, and that includes not making people work more than what you pay them. So 40-hour work weeks, minimum wage, giving them sick pay, when people are unwell, for example, if they need vacation time, trying to finance that where possible.
Did you see the headlines with some of the PPP money went to the big brands and the big companies?
Yeah.
That pissed me off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it pissed me off. I mean, I wasn't surprised. Like, I kind of expect it from big corporations. And you see that a lot in America, where a lot of money, especially from the government, goes to big companies like airlines and CEOs, and small businesses are constantly shit on. So I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised either. So the airlines are getting, I'm going to throw this to you. The airlines are going to get bailout money. And the airlines employ so many people across the country. The crazy thing is local restaurants are getting no bailout money from the federal government. And local restaurants employ even more people than the airline industry.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I know a lot more about this because I used to be a flight attendant for 4 years, and I was based in Dubai. And, tourism is very important for the local economy as well. So if we don't have tourism, then we're not generating enough revenue for the restaurants. But that's not to say that restaurants shouldn't get any financing to help their employees. Like, everyone certainly should be getting it. It shouldn't just be going to big corporations. And they should also put things in line to ensure that it is going to employees of the airline and not just to CEOs.
Well said. Well said. Are you scared? Are you nervous? Are you uncertain? What's the feeling here as a businesswoman?
I'm not scared. Like, I feel like, my business has been through a lot. Like, 3 months after opening, we had Nazis. The downtown mall suffered a lot, and we still thrived. And, under the circumstances, we're still doing really well. We have a lot of customers who believe in us, and they believe in the product. And like you said in the beginning, we're already pretty suited for takeout and delivery, so I think we're going to continue to thrive.
Caton Reynolds is watching you from the front porch here in the downtown mall. Daniel Kaufman's watching you from Public. Former Mayor Dave Norris, who's coming on the show later, is watching you. Are you worried about the downtown mall? Excuse me.
I'm worried about some businesses in the downtown mall just because of their concepts. I feel like they have to change to cater.
You're saying retail?
Yeah, maybe the retail, just because everything's kind of going online. But even some of the fine diner restaurants, I feel like they have to make changes to suit the economy.
Yeah, I agree. Downtown Grill closed permanently. What I mean, iconic generational business here where people go for their anniversaries and weddings and functions here. I mean, what happens first? What did you make of Downtown Grill closing? First, that question.
I mean, I feel like COVID was probably the pushing point for them, but I felt like might have been on its way out anyway because it was kind of quiet unless it was like the high peak tourist seasons or graduation weekend. I mean, it's sad, but I feel like there's some changes that these, fine dining establishments can make to cater to more people.
What happens to the space?
Good question. I mean, it could be like a multi-purpose place. I imagine maybe it's going to go out for like a catering company or something like that, an event space, because it's just so big,
How about this question? You have a model that I think is affordable, it's delicious, it's priced fairly, it's like in and out quickly. Do you see other businesses that are fine dining changing? I mean, how is someone that has a tiny dining room and expensive price points and nowhere to sit and people nervous being around sitting other people, how is someone like that going to survive?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they'd be able to do something like what I'm doing just because of the nature of the space. But I feel like there's a way they can do takeout family meals, which are still on the fine dining kind of scale, but not as expensive, something that's going to be affordable for them and for the customer.
Yeah, I agree. What do you want to see from Charlottesville? What do you want to see from, the people running the city, local government?
I mean, I want to see them supporting the local community more. I want to see them maybe cutting back on meals taxes because, granted, they generate a lot of money from meals tax. If there's no restaurants around, they're not going to have any money. So I feel like that would encourage people to eat out more. Maybe give a bigger break for people who are ordering takeout and delivery when it comes to meal taxes as well.
Can you give us a snapshot, because this question's coming in now, can you give us a snapshot and the importance of the university to Charlottesville? Even because a lot of folks that are watching the show think that, downtown is not getting a ton of UVA students. That might have been the case a long time ago. That's not the case anymore.
There's some of my bigger customers and we usually have lines out the door on the weekends and that's all students, So, they're so important. Obviously they're more important to the corner because they're dining out daily, but for the weekend and for the market, certainly, and their families visiting, it's so important for all businesses downtown.
This question coming in this is from one of your fellow restaurant owners, actually. The question coming in from third-party delivery. Do you use them? Do you like them? It seems like they're taking all our money, Kathryn.
Yeah. Well, I made a post about this the other day. I've actually been on third-party delivery sites since we opened, and it is a good way to market your business. We don't necessarily make a lot of profit, but, they generate views to, millions of people around the USA and tourists. So it's great for marketing, but they take at least 30% of a restaurant sales, and right now where they're claiming not to take any commission, and I checked and it doesn't look like that's the case right now, just a market employ to get people to buy from them more often.
So they're still taking their cut?
Yeah.
30% is I totally get it. So you're basically saying you're making barely any money, and the reason why you're doing it is because of the brand awareness, and you don't want that customer eating somewhere else.
Yeah. Obviously, as a person in the community, I want to see local businesses supported, but this is business at the end of the day. We all got to make some money.
Right. This question coming in for you as well about your analysis on the Downtown Grill. I would have thought that Prime 109 restaurant had probably swallowed a lot of the Downtown Grill market share away, but I'm no restaurant guru. Can you ask your guests that question? Charlottesville's only so big. Good question.
Yeah, I think that's probably I think that's a factor. It's a steakhouse. It's the same price point, and it's a bit more modern. It offers cocktails. So, yeah, probably.
When is how about the farmers market? How much do you miss that?
I miss it a lot. Farmers market season doesn't generate a ton of money for us on a Saturday because there's a lot of food places there.
But you and your guy live right around the corner from it, right?
Yeah. So, but I'm really missing the farmers market, just for it being there and seeing the local vendors. There are ways that you can support, local farmers. You can purchase CSAs, and right now they have the drive-through market. So it's really important to support them during this time too.
How were you on this topic? I was torn on this topic of being the champion for small business and then being the champion for social distancing and staying healthy. Like such a fine line of like, we want mankind to survive, but we can't have our local economy like never recover, which is going to create exponential problems on the back end. How did you manage that topic?
I mean, it's really hard, and I think if it was just for me, I probably would consider closing for a little while, but it looks like this is going to be going on for a lot longer than most of us anticipated. And it's not just me, it's my employees, and they have to put food on their tables at the end. I think there's a way that we can do this safely and keep the economy going.
Yeah, me too. I agree. How did your employees respond to your leadership? I mean, do they understand the hard, like our team does, of like the hardship and the positions we're in here with the uncertainty of when this is going to be over and the cash flow management and the burn rate that we have to try to predict? I mean, do they understand how hard this is?
Yeah, my employees are absolutely awesome right now. And in the beginning, they were putting it out there that if I needed to cut hours, like they totally understand. They appreciate me. They know how hard I work. And now that things are going well, I give them more hours, and they're appreciative of that too.
Comment coming in from you. This is from Elizabeth Doe Stone.
Yeah.
She says, Kathryn is such an amazing member of the Charlottesville community. I'm proud of her ethical practices and advocacy for women in the foodie scene. Love seeing her on your show, Jerry. Thank you, Elizabeth, for that great comment. Stephanie Rhodes, welcome to the program. How about the advocacy that you've been doing lately? Because you've stepped it up. You've stepped your game up another level, and you were already bringing the heat, weren't you?
Yeah, no. I mean, I think after the car accident, I just stopped caring about what people think. And I really just want to be an advocate for women in the community because I feel like they don't get the same market share as men. And I think they're often overlooked, and we're just as hardworking. And we have these great businesses with amazing food, but we're not getting the publicity that we deserve.
Give Kathryn some love right there with a comment or by liking and sharing the feed. You really saw that, Kathryn. And you can tell that I follow you on social media. I really saw that when a dude walked into your restaurant and said, let me speak to the male owner. And you were about to like drop him and kick him in the, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know. It took everything in my power.
Tell us that story because you handled it well.
Yeah, I handled it well. Like, they asked the man in charge, and I told them that I'm the man in charge. And he was super apologetic, but, I just didn't want to give him the time of day after that, so.
As you shouldn't. Scott, the attorney, who comes into Iron Paffles, is watching in Virginia Beach. He says, I love her food. Iron Paffles absolutely rocks, and I miss the farmer's market as well. A lot of people watching you right now. How about some words of advice or wisdom for Charlottesville?
Just remember that we're all in this together, and especially if you're like a female in the community, join Charlottesville Women in Food. There's a great support network there, and people generally have your backs and will give you great advice. And you message me too if you really want tips and advice. I'm happy to give it wherever I can.
How about this message? And we'll close on this. This will make you happy. Jerry, I love this guest that you have on the show. I've never been to her restaurant. Can you ask her hours because my family's coming to support her this week?
Oh, so we're open 7 till 3 every day. Apart from Friday, we open 7 until 8 p.m.
Love it. Brian at Petit Pois Restaurant, just like the feed. Thank you kindly for joining us. Robin is giving the heart emoji. She's loving what you see. You rock.
Thank you. You rock.
Thank you. You have a good one.
You too.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye, Kathryn. Absolutely amazing. She is amazing. So many great, talented, and intelligent people, hardworking people in this community. Another one coming up in Dave Norris in about 9 minutes on the program. Scott in Virginia Beach, I love her food as well. Colleen Tyler, the fabulous realtor. That story about the New York doctor that committed suicide gave me goosebumps as well. And the reason I brought it up on the show is to prioritize mental health and for us to consider it at this time. Let's not forget this, what's happening in between here. We're often so concerned of contact and sneeze and inhaling. We forget here and here. That's why I brought that up. Dan Pettit, the realtor, says, my wife is the man in charge. Dan, I know the feeling, and my wife's watching right now. My wife is the man in charge. Dave Warwick, the fabulous brewmaster from Three Notch Brewing Company, chimed into the show. Dave and Three Notch have a fabulous case club. My wife and I and our family, at least a case a week from Three Notch and shopping local. I encourage you to join the case club. So much to get to. The lead headline is worth getting to again. And Dave, we'll reach out to you in about 4 minutes. Let's get to Northam's headline from yesterday. This made me happy. He's considering opening up Virginia in stages, guys. And I mean, you got to think about it. If you're in southwestern Virginia, you're probably not as scared if you're in southwestern Virginia of COVID-19 as you are in Hampton Roads and Hampton, Virginia, when military servicemen from all over the world are coming to your community and getting off boats and patronizing your community, and that's why it got so prolific, the pandemic in Hampton Roads. If you're in southwestern Virginia, you're probably like saying to the governor right now, dude, you're killing us. We're trying to make our rent, our mortgage, and feed our employees and our kids. Let us open. This isn't impacting us. In central Virginia, it's been managed and handled well. Don't you feel, I'm going to say it. Don't you feel fortunate a little bit here? We're not in New York, in the city. We're not in New Jersey. We're not in Hampton Roads. We have a governor that's handling this pretty well in the Commonwealth. We have Charlottesvillians and Central Virginians who are being mindful of social distancing but still supporting local businesses. Don't you feel proud of Charlottesville and Central Virginia of how we've handled this so far? I do. I feel proud. I feel proud to be from Charlottesville. And Ralph Northam, considering a regional plan for Virginia, is a direct response to the states around him opening up, creating pressure for him to open the Virginia economy. That was yesterday's news. Judah, I'm going to reach out to Dave Norris, Skyping him now. We'll go to Dave in about 15 seconds. I'm excited to get his take of how the governor of Virginia has handled COVID-19. I got the thumbs up from you, Judah, to welcome him on screen. I do. This guy is, I'm going to hype you a little bit, Dave, here before you come on the show. This guy is a proud Charlottesvillian. He loves the community. He loves supporting local restaurants. He's just a cool dude. He's a guy I would like to be around at any watering hole in Virginia, trading stories with, because the time would pass and it would be a memorable evening. Let's welcome him to the show, Dave Norris, former mayor of Charlottesville, Virginia. My friend, you are live. How are you?
Jerry, after that introduction, I'm going to need a wider camera screen. My head has gotten this big, so thank you. The sentiment's mutual.
It's good to see you. All right, how's the mental health? How's your world?
You know, we're hanging in there. I got my 9-year-old at home from school a lot, so he's keeping me on my toes and trying to do that homeschooling thing, and sometimes succeeding. And but just trying to keep balls in the air with the different jobs that I do, and trying to stay positive. So.
Did I see on social media that your oldest son got a car?
Yeah, my oldest son, he got a car, and he's actually a busy young man. He's working over at Wegmans. He's been racking up all kinds of hours. You know, that place is doing gangbusters business, and so he's staying busy and keeping food on the shelves over him. And I'm proud of the work he's doing. So, and he's making hazard pay. He's making a little bit more money than he thought. So
good. Please tell him Charlottesville is grateful for him and what he's doing for keeping foods on the shelves. All right, I'll get out of your way. COVID-19. Here's the question that's come up: what can local government actually do for COVID-19? What are the powers?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have to give our counselors a lot of props for what they've been doing. A lot of it's just, honestly, it's just getting good information out to the public, and and trying to keep people up to speed on what's happening, what are the cautionary measures they should be taking, what's the trajectory of this virus locally, what's the impact. Trying to do what we can to keep people safe, and keep people informed. And so they've done a good job of that, and our mayor's been out there a lot. Lloyd Snook's been every day been updating people with data and information. Michael Payne, Cena, I mean, all of them. They've been doing I think a good job. Of course, they're also trying to wrestle with the budget and how this is going to impact the city revenues and city expenditures. That's not easy in a normal environment. So having to, overlay that with coronavirus makes their job even more difficult. So, and now they're having to make some pretty big cuts, or at least defer some programs, defer some projects, and that's never fun. But you got to tighten your belt. All of us are tightening our belts in our own homes, and the city's got to do the same.
I mentioned this to Councilor Heather Hill on one of the shows we did. Heather Hill and Mayor Walker start their political careers with August 12th, 2017, slowly creeping out of the woods of 8/12, and then COVID-19 hits. I mean, good night, right?
Double whammy. Yeah, I mean, and you never. I always tell people when you run for office, you never know what's going to be thrown at you. You never know what's going to end up dominating your own time. You can have all the best ideas in the world of what you want to try to accomplish, and then you get into office, and suddenly you're wrestling with all kinds of other demons. And so, but again, I think they've done a good job. I didn't mention Heather Hill, but she's really gotten out there and getting neighborhood associations and neighborhood leaders involved in helping to get the word out in their communities and getting email lists. And they're all doing their own thing in their own way to try to be good stewards. And I got to give them a lot of credit for that.
So we know for City Hall and for Charlottesville, we know that money's going to be hurting right now. Restaurants are closing. UVA students not in Charlottesville. Tourism is kaputs here. I can't even imagine, and that's why we asked you to be on the show. How do you go about doing a 2021 budget when right in the bottom of the ninth inning, everything hits the proverbial fan?
Yeah, I mean, this is where it's an all hands on deck kind of approach, and you got to get Todd Divers and the Commissioner of Revenue's office involved, and the Treasurer's office, and of course obviously the budget folks and the city manager and his team, and the city councilors, and all just get around the proverbial table. They can't get around an actual table right now, but get around the proverbial table and figure out what's deferrable, what are some things that we can do without this year. From my initial take, I think they've taken a pretty measured, pretty responsible approach to that. Certain capital projects that don't necessarily have to get started this year, they can put them off for another year. Certain, studies that they can defer, other things. And some of these are easier cuts than others, and so when they start looking at maybe not increasing salaries as much as they had hoped or at all, those are tough calls. But we'll get through it, and hopefully there'll be some more assistance coming down from the federal government to offset some of those cuts, maybe from the state government as well. So at the end of the day, my guess is they're going to reassess mid-year and find out that, some of those things they'll be able to put back into the mix, but they want to take a cautious approach now, and I think that makes sense.
It's so interesting here. You bring up the capital projects. There's 3 of them that everyone's been watching for a long time. The Belmont Bridge, the West Main Streetscape, and then the garage on Market Street where Lucky 7 and Guadalajara is going. All 3 is supposed to be in the pipe here, right? West Main Streetscape is getting money from the Commonwealth, so it's got some pressure from outside the community to make sure that project keeps going. That leaves 2, the garage on East Market Street, that literally there had to be a shake of hand promise between the city councilors and the board of supervisors, to the point where Supervisor Rick Randolph said on the record in Court Square, the city has a huge history of not keeping its promises with Albemarle County. And Dave Norris, right now, the city of Charlottesville may have to go to Albemarle County and say, we don't have the money to keep our promise.
Well, at least to keep it this year. I mean, they may, again, that's something that may end up happening and may end up being bumped back a year. But I can't imagine Albemarle County will throw too big of a fit about that. If that
you don't think so?
Well, if it's canceling the project, that's one thing. If it's just delaying it a year, hopefully there'll be some understanding there. But I think those are all controversial projects. They've all been controversial. The Belmont Bridge is well overdue at this point. It's ironic because one of the options that we considered for the Belmont Bridge and rejected when I was on council back in 10 years ago. One of the options was one that would have, I'm going to blank on the date, but just I'm paraphrasing here. But basically, they said we can choose this particular option, but it means the bridge won't get done until 2017. And we're like, oh no, we can't do that. We can't put the bridge off that long. When here we are, it's 2020, and we haven't gotten any further. But anyhow, the Belmont Bridge needs to get done. It's
Mr. Belmont, Jehu Martin wants to know. Jehu wants to know about the Belmont Bridge. Is it good? Mr. Belmont wants to know. Is it going to get done?
It will get done. It has to get done at some point. It's a safety hazard. There's been all kinds of talk over the years about different ways of doing the bridge or doing away with the bridge altogether, which I'm not sure makes perfect sense. But I've seen a variety of ideas. But we've got to get the bridge done at this point. It's long overdue. Now, the garage is one that is something that we can wait on. West Main Streetscape is a nice to have. It's not a need to have. It's a nice to have. Honestly, West Main Streetscape of the three is the one that I could see putting off for quite some time, just because there's no immediate public safety issue there. It'd be nice from a design perspective to have more trees and better designed sidewalks and whatnot. But in this time, in this day and age, those are some of the things we can wait on.
We got a comment from Neil Williamson,
Okay.
Free Enterprise Forum. He says,
Yep.
Jerry and Dave, the parking deck agreement has a bailout clause allowing the city to provide dedicated spaces in the Market Street garage. In my humble opinion, it will never get built considering the city's other priorities, including affordable housing. And that's a natural segue into public housing and affordable housing. First, what are your thoughts on Neil's comment?
Yeah, Neil's exactly right. It does have that clause in it. In normal times, particularly on court days, there are days of the week or days of the month at least where the garage does fill up right now. And so that was part of the impetus for exploring another garage. I'm not sold on the need for another garage, although I think they've gotten pretty far down the path right now planning for that. Nobody really knows what autonomous vehicles and all are going to do to the parking industry and the need for more downtown parking or just parking structures in general. There's a lot of questions right now about, do we need to be building more parking when there are other priorities? But, I think that's a decision that's sort of been made already, and not to say they can't revisit it, but there's a lot resting on that decision, and I suspect at some point they will move forward and build that garage.
You have a number of restaurant owners watching right now, including the family behind Guadalajara, Ivan watching over at Zocalo, and Daniel at Public Fish and Oyster. How about a word for the restaurateurs? You love food as much as I do, a good drink and some good food.
I do. I really want to see our restaurant industry bounce back. It's really, in many ways, the lifeblood of our community, and certainly, the downtown obviously depends heavily on having a thriving restaurant scene, and downtown is the heart of our economy in many ways, and certainly the cultural heart of our community in many ways. So, we want to see restaurants succeed. I have all the sympathy in the world for the restaurateurs who have asked for some relief when it comes to meals tax and whatnot. I was pleased that the city finally did agree to delay collections and waive some fees and penalties and whatnot. Is that enough? I don't know. You touched on a subject with Kathryn earlier about how a lot of the assistance that was supposed to come from the federal government for small businesses, mom and pop businesses, locally owned businesses, instead is being gobbled up by large national companies, publicly traded companies, et cetera, who really don't need it, to be honest. And I think it's a real shame. And speaking as somebody who owns my own little business, I've talked to a lot of people who are, sole proprietors, people who have small businesses. People are really hurting out here and aren't able to access the support that's supposedly available on the federal level, and that's very frustrating. So I do hope we can lift some of the restrictions sooner rather than later on restaurant operations so that we can get things moving again. Obviously, we have to do it in a careful way, but I think it's doable.
What do you think is the future of weddings? We had had Brian Schorberg of Keswick Vineyards on the show, Claire Goodman, Aaron Watson, Ray. I mean, we had some big. What do you think? What's the future?
Yeah, I'm optimistic actually. Even though I'm hurting right now, I mean, I've lost over 90% of my wedding business this spring. You know, weddings a seasonal business, and spring and fall are the two big seasons around here. And I've lost about 90% of my spring business, which is a huge hit to my own personal income. But we'll get through it. But the good news is that most of the weddings have not canceled; they've just postponed. So they're still going to go through and have a Charlottesville wedding. It'll be either this fall or maybe next spring, next summer. I've had summer scheduled as far as next summer. So I do think it's going to bounce back. It's as Claire Goodman said on your show, there's going to be an awkward sort of transition period where people are going to be wary about having large groups come together for wedding, receptions and whatnot. But I think as the economy bounces back, weddings will certainly bounce back. Weddings are something that bring joy to people, certainly bring a lot of economic activity to our region. It's something we all can get behind, and I really do feel optimistic about the wedding industry.
Dr. Rebecca Downey watching the program. What's up, Rebecca? Welcome to the show. Are you worried about downtown?
Not necessarily. I mean, I have longstanding concerns about downtown, but well before the virus. But just because you hate to see something become sort of a boutique shopping experience that's relatively exclusive. And when I moved here downtown, it still felt like it belonged to the whole community, and that's increasingly less so. It seems like it, but in terms of downtown being able to bounce back from this virus, I'm absolutely confident. I said last time I was on your show, I can easily envision, by summer, maybe late summer now, but by summer, seeing crowds come back downtown. I see it happening. I am feeling optimistic about, just the trajectory overall. We have to be careful. But to make this whole thing work, to make a recovery work, we need to have the testing. That's the key piece. And that's one thing that's really frustrating to me, and I know to a lot of people, is the fact in a nation of 300 some odd million people, we've only done 5 million tests. That's infinitesimal. That's not even approaching acceptable. And there's still to this day people who can't get tested, who want to get tested, who need to get tested. And if we want the economy to bounce back, we've got to be able to do the kind of testing at scale that's going to allow us to identify people who need to be isolated, need to be quarantined, need to be protected, and that's got to happen. And I don't know why it's not happening. I'm not an expert in this stuff, but it just seems to me that's a huge step we have to take, and then we can work on getting our economy back in order.
Neil says, by the way, Dave, for what it's worth, the June 6th Williamson nuptials are now July 4th. Fingers crossed. Wedding is a big business here in Central Virginia. Josh Elwood, welcome to the show. Western Albemarle baseball player at one time. Beth Marcus, hello. I want to get to what you do. Before we do, I was having this conversation over bourbon with a buddy, virtually, but over bourbon, of how COVID-19 is going to exacerbate the wealth gap in the world.
Yes. Yeah.
You have folks that this is being taken for granted, that I don't even think we highlight this enough. The ability to work from home in a home office on a Wi-Fi and earn income is something that I think is being undervalued in 2020, April 2020. Yeah.
No, I absolutely agree. And it also applies to schooling. Kids who have internet access, like my 9-year-old, are able to follow along and stay engaged. Kids that don't have a laptop, don't have internet access, it's going to just exacerbate the achievement gap that we already are experiencing. Same on the wealth gap that you mentioned. Again, when it comes to small business, for instance, the businesses that are going to recover fastest are the ones that are already, most well connected and
that have the money.
Have the money because they're able to access those federal resources, unlike the sort of struggling mom and pop businesses who don't have the kind of cushion that a larger business might have. And I really do worry. And of course, the unemployment. That's going to put people behind. We already have a huge wealth gap in this country when it comes to white Americans and African Americans. This is going to exacerbate that. So we've got a lot to, and as Senator Sanders has said on many occasions over the last month, and not him, but many others as well, not just him, is that it's exposing some realities in our
especially
society.
with healthcare.
Healthcare, education, income, wealth, assets, you name it. It's really making a bad situation worse. And so we've got, as we're thinking about the long-term recovery under whoever is president as of January, we really have to think hard about closing those gaps.
Well said. COVID-19 and impacting redevelopment and public housing in Central Virginia.
Yeah. So that's my day job is, I still work as the redevelopment coordinator for the Charlottesville Housing Authority. And so we've got 7 public housing neighborhoods that we're in the initial steps of redeveloping, working with the residents of each neighborhood. It's going to be about a $200 million project overall. We've raised about $50 million over the last year in commitments. However, unfortunately, the very first project that we were about to take on, in fact, we were planning to break ground this month or May at the latest, is Crescent Halls, which is our high rise for the elderly and people with disabilities. Well, that happens to be the part of the population that's highest risk and most vulnerable to this virus and has the highest mortality rate if they were to contract the virus. So all work in terms of renovation at Crescent Halls is on hold, and it's on long-term hold because we just don't want to risk the health of our residents. So we've put those plans on the shelf for now. We're still going to do the renovation project. Hopefully, in the next 6 months or so, we can revisit it. But our general contractor is absolutely committed to maintaining the health and safety of the residents. Because it is a renovation in place, the residents will be occupying the building while it's under renovation. We just don't want to have moving crews and construction crews coming in and out of the building every day and threatening to spread the virus among that very vulnerable population. So unfortunately, that's on hold. It will happen. But it's on hold for now. And then we have our second project, which is some new construction, some new apartments down on South First Street. That one is moving forward. We'll hope to break ground this summer, and at least we'll have some good work going on as we continue the work of planning for our other sites and engaging with residents at our other sites to envision a new and better future for their community. But for now, we are kind of taking a wait-and-see approach at Crescent Halls.
How did the residents respond to the delay at Crescent Halls?
I think people right now are so focused on the here and now, and I don't think anybody's surprised. I think Crescent Halls is they've taken a lot of lumps over recent years. Just the building has been failing, and but the residents have persevered and they're strong-willed, and they know at some point this is going to happen. And but right now, I think we're just focused on keeping them safe, keeping them healthy. We don't want to see the kind of outbreak there that we've seen in some of the other Crescent Halls is an assisted living, but some of the other senior facilities in the state and in the country where, once it gets hold, the virus spreads like wildfire, and we don't want to see that happen.
You're awesome. You're awesome. Grace says thank you to Dave for joining us on the show. I really enjoy when he comes on the program, Jerry. How about we close with the same question? How about a word for Charlottesville? You have Charlottesville listening here. People are scared. They're uncertain. How about a word from Dave Norris?
Right. Well, I mean, I think people have good reason to be fearful, but we're already starting to see positive signs that that we're cresting. The things are certainly other states are seeing declining numbers now. I think that's going to be Virginia in the very near future in terms of, the number of people that are succumbing to the virus, the number of hospitalizations. New York is already starting to, they're on the downside of that curve. So all the steps that we're taking are having a positive impact. I really do give credit to Governor Northam for his leadership. I think very sort of reasoned, measured leadership in the steps that he's taken, that we've taken. I think they're working. We need better testing, absolutely. But in general, I think things are going to get better, start to get better very soon here. And, we just got to stay focused on getting through this, and we're gonna, as you always say on your show, Jerry, we're gonna get through this. We're gonna come out. This is a wonderful community, right? It's an asset-rich community. We have a lot going for us. We're gonna be in good shape when this is all said and done. And then we got to focus on, how do we move forward in a better way so that we not only address some of the issues that have come up in the course of fighting this virus, but also look at some of the issues that have been long-standing, and how do we proceed in a more equitable way and come out a better community.
You're awesome, dude. Thank you. I'm grateful.
All right. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
you have a good one.
Stay
Bye,
well,
Dave. Dave Norris, guys, great guys. Thank you for joining us here on the I Love CVille show. I love the optimism. Dave Norris brings it. I think when we're on the other side of this is something worth highlighting. Lisa Watson says this: great seeing Dave Norris on here. We love when he's officiating the weddings we are photographing for couples. Dave Norris, I actually been to a wedding that he officiated. He's fantastic. He's a wordsmith. He gets to know the bride and groom and their families, and he relays a message that is powerful and poignant and memorable and impactful because he spends his time getting to know the people he's talking about. And not every officiant would do that. Dave does. He's one of the best in the game here. I think this is a topic that we need to bring up. When we're on the other side, and I have a lot of topics, if you can't tell, right here. A lot of diarrhea of the mind, stream of conscious ideas of where I think things are going and topics that I think you should understand. I'm just trying to relay topics to you that are important, that I think that are impactful to the community. This is the next one that's going to come up when we're on the other side of COVID-19. Unfortunately, COVID-19 is going to exacerbate the wealth gap in the country, certainly in Charlottesville, where the wealth gap was already prevalent. I've made the comment on this show, is Charlottesville turning into this bastion or this playground of wealthy tech bros and wealthy one-percenters? And Dave Norris touched on that about the downtown mall, how the downtown mall has become such an expensive experience. And because it's become an expensive experience and because there's a financial barrier of entry, it's become more exclusive and less inclusive and less well-rounded and more potentially clubbish or fraternity-ish. That's just the nature of capitalism, unfortunately. And the nature of capitalism, the invisible hand that drives a capitalistic market, is unfair. The invisible hand that drives the capitalistic market is relentless. The invisible hand is going to do what it wants. And the invisible hand that drives the capitalistic market does not care about race or how much money you have in the bank or what your health conditions are. It's just going to continue driving the capitalistic market forward, and you're either going to be left in the dust or you're going to get on the ship and keep going. And when COVID-19 is over, we're going to see that divide of people who made it on the ship and kept going, and the people that were left on the dock and couldn't make it on sea and were left stuck and not able to move forward with their lives, or got stuck on something financially, or got stuck on something health-wise. That's the next thing. That's not only going to come up in Charlottesville, but that's going to come up in small towns everywhere, in communities and cities everywhere, of the enormous wealth gap that's breeding in the community. That's the next thing. I want to close with the final headline, a little bit of hope. The first headline of the show: Ralph Northam, the governor of Virginia, feeling obvious pressure from states up and down the mid-Atlantic and across the country to reopen the economy. He talks with reporters yesterday that he's considering a slow rollout phasing. He's getting pressured left and right, and the pressure should keep coming. I'm Jerry Miller. This is the I Love CVille show on the I Love CVille network, Mondays through Fridays, 12:30 to 1:30, where we just try to bring you the best of Charlottesville, Virginia, and beyond, so you leave feeling a little bit smarter and a little bit more informed. We really hope you guys have a good afternoon. Take care.